So you may have seen George Michael, Portrait of an Artist already. It came out earlier this year. It's just been released on Blu-ray and DVD, so we thought we'd discuss. My name is Phil. We are Boys on Film. Look who's here. Sean Vickers.
I'm here.
In the building.
I'm not generative AI. I'm actually here.
That'll be the next step. We won't need you soon.
If I can kind of like outsource this to a bit of AI, just wait.
So this is a documentary by Simon Napier-Bell, of course, was Wham's manager back in the 80s, and he's gone on to manage so many other artists. I mean, I think Sinead O'Connor was one of those artists. But yeah, it's his film, and it's, like I say, coming out on the 4th of December on Blu-ray and DVD with extra footage. I think there's 80 minutes extra footage, interviews, etc.
Delicious.
And 50-minute interview with Simon Napier-Bell as well. I think he's in his 80s now, so it's like 82 or something. So he's definitely got a lot of experience. There's a lot of stories, I would imagine, in that interview. Haven't seen any of the extras, but we'll talk about the documentary. So where do we start? Can we start with my interview with George Michael first? I mean, I don't know if you know this.
Can I start by saying Simon Napier-Bell, Whamager?
Symbols
and that
crash.
Is the end of this review. I think that's all I have to say about
that's
it.
That's all we need, to be fair. So yeah, I interviewed George Michael back in 2012. I have to say, what an absolutely lovely guy. I mean, sorely missed, obviously. He's very much missed in so many ways. But the interview that I did was on the day of Madonna's MDNA show, which I hated, by the way, at Hyde Park. So I had to hot-foot it from George's interview on to see Madonna early evening, just after the interview. But unfortunately, I didn't get any photographs because his manager at the time didn't allow the photographs, although I'm sure he would have allowed it. I never asked him at the end of the interview. I'm kind of kicking myself now because I wish I'd had that memory. Still got a lot of memories in my head, but I just wish I'd got that, photographic memory, as it were. But yeah, absolute gentleman, and just made me so at ease. I mean, I was kind of nervous before I started. I'd done so many interviews before, but this one was different, and it remains my favourite interview because of the stuff that he gave me, because of the stories he told, and the insight that I had. And he was just really honest, and just a really funny guy as well. Really, really good sense of humour. So yeah, very much missed. But I just wanted to start with that because I've got good memories.
Yeah, of course. And I think we've touched on George a few times on this channel, and what I always stand behind is he was at the forefront of basically not buying into queer shame and saying, this is who I am. You don't like it, but this is my lifestyle. And this is the lifestyle of many, many queer people. And we will not succumb. We will not be heteronormalized. This is what we do. And I'm not going to be ashamed of it. And I'm not going to be ashamed of being a gay man. And, he was doing that at a time when, there was a sense of like, we'll tolerate you, but, keeping the shadows kind of thing. And George was having none of it. This is not that long ago. And so I always, I see George talking on any of those interviews that he did. And I'm always just absolutely amazed and proud of what he did for our community, and more people now speak out in a far more authentic way. But George was at the forefront of that, of taking absolutely no shit. Yeah. And I love it.
The way that he was outed as well, handling it in such a creative, funny, intelligent, smart way of the outside video. I mean, for starters, with the revolving urinals. I mean, just so brilliant, so tongue-in-cheek, so clever, the way that he did that. And also, like you say, just taking no and taking no prisoners, and just handling the interviews, like the Parkinson interview he did, just handling all of that with such aplomb and such kind of gracefulness as well as being completely acute with everything and just no shame, which is just how it should be.
His arrest, the day after arrest, like what the media wants, and obviously he went to war with Murdoch, but what the media want is him to kind of like repent, hide, close the curtains. He swans out of his front door. He's like, I'm off for dinner. I'm like, yes, George, amazing. Like, don't play into it, because all of that is triggered by shame, and he was someone that just said "fuck shame, I'm not having it." And I have to say, I think he was the forefront of a lot of those conversations, because he was a pin-up pop star. Before he came out, he was on the bedroom walls of girls and boys all over the world, right? And so for him to come out, and the record company would have been wincing, because obviously they just want the hard-earned dollar. Absolutely. But for George to be like, no, this is who I am, I think it's incredible. And also, it's well-trodden ground, but his battle with Sony, was huge. And was really never going to win and got bought out. But again, he was like, yeah, I'm the small guy in this conversation, and I'm going to call out behavior. I mean, this is the time before the internet, you know, where the press really had all the power. And it's amazing that he said, I don't care. This is not right, you know. And like his internal moral compass and his integrity fought through. And that's something we should all stand behind.
Yeah, his battle with Sony is documented in this documentary as well. And also some memories of the Wham stuff from people like Joe Wiley, and there's a lot of interviews with people who remember going to see them. I went to see Wham back in 83, I think it was, and it was the tour
45.
they're talking about. They talk about, you know, they came on in shorts, stuffing shuttlecocks down their pants and then hitting them out into the crowd. I remember that, just being surrounded by girls screaming, my ears. It was like Beatlemania. It was amazing.
Yeah. I think this is a great documentary. You know, I think we're in that run of, there's been quite a few talking heads documentaries about George. I think this is the most comprehensive, to be fair.
Do you? That's interesting. I think we're going to have different views, I think, on this.
Well, let's talk about this, because, you know, we talk about the 101, and we've had documentaries where they go into the 101. I think this introduces the story and more. I think, unlike the Duran Duran documentary that we reviewed recently, here you do have talking heads who knew him, who were qualifying the story, especially around his philanthropy, which, you know, he never wanted to talk about, but he was incredibly philanthropic and supported not just the queer community, but wider. And, you know, I think a lot of that comes out in this story.
So some of those people included are Chris Cameron, Mike Batt, we've got Johnny Douglas, Lee Forsyth Griffiths, who I remember talking to in Rupert Street quite a few years ago.
I think
Chrissy
Gambaccini's on it, Joe Wiley's
of course,
on
Gambaccini's on it.
BD's, yeah, there's a lot, but like
Peter Tatchell,
like there's a lot of people that kind of, you know, I always talk about this with documentaries, like who kind of enrich with their own stories and really like fill out the narrative, and I think you get that really well in this, to be honest. There is, I will say, and I know what let me try and predict it. There is the Wham documentary on Netflix, which is very, very good. Yeah.
Kind of stylized and a bit brushed over and a bit one-sided perhaps, but then of course George isn't around, so he can't have his input into that or this documentary, obviously, but it's a kind of sliding doors moment in a way, isn't it? What if? What if he was around? What would it have been like? Yeah. We have to also remember that Wham's manager at the time, who has directed this documentary, apparently, according to him, lost a lot of money when they split. Was it £40 million or something?
Gosh, not small change, is it?
As the time goes on in the chronology of this documentary, it does feel like it becomes more bitter towards the end, and that's not just because of George's passing. It feels like it's all very rosy at the beginning. Kind of left me feeling quite depressed after this finished. But I don't know if that's because I was sad about the fact that he is such a great artist and we've lost that person, or perhaps because I interviewed him as well and I got to see a little glimpse of what he was like as a person and how he treated other people.
Well, it is a sad ending though, Phil. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, you look at his decline, if I can use the word decline, and I think you pair that with, you know, the last kind of 20-30 minutes does talk about his decline, but also his philanthropic ways, and they're both losses in a way, because, you know, what he was doing, he never shouted about any of that kind of stuff, and so there's a loss there, there's a sadness there to think, what an amazing person, you know, who was doing all of this stuff and was like, please don't put my name on it, I will help you. And then obviously his personal decline. And so I think it is melancholic as you get towards the end, because that is the nature of the story, you know. And so I think your comments are fair.
What about the feel of the documentary as well? I felt not only did it feel a bit rushed, but then I guess they've only got a certain amount of time, an hour and a half, to put in everything. And it's a huge story, isn't it, in itself, not just his career, but his personal life. So it's a lot to cram in, but it felt like it needed more room to breathe. It felt just almost like they were just rushing through everything.
Yeah, maybe. I'm trying to think of like comparable artists where, you know, they have a body of documentaries. Whitney Houston's another one, right? You think about the films, the documentaries, and we as the viewer then piece together what we believe the narrative to be. Whitney Houston's a really good one. You know, people talk about her relationship with Robin, etc. And films and documentaries have built that out. I think this is the same here, because you take the documentary on Wham and you understand Andrew's role in a lot of what was going on and how they built that out as a duo and what happened. Then you take these kind of documentaries which are very much focused on George and his story, and you start to build out the narrative. Is there a comprehensive documentary out there that covers soup to nuts, the whole piece? No. But maybe that will never exist. Maybe it's for us to say, oh, you know, I can understand this story. And actually, if they did that, it might be a bit flabby and a bit weighty because of so much ground to carry. So I think focusing in on George here, focusing on what he did, I appreciate, the formatting, not the best. But for me, it was okay. I think, as I said, this won't be the last documentary about George Michael within a country mile. The people will continue to do work around George Michael because of his role and because of how important he was. And again, we continue to find out information and we continue to build that narrative because it's not really written down anywhere. So I think that's what will continue to happen, and we will continue to frame a view of George Michael in our own minds.
That's a good point, I think. I think what it reminded me of, I don't know if you agree with this, I think visually, also the aesthetic of it, it reminded me of like one of those Channel 5 documentaries, or like one of those countdown shows that we see at Christmas time, you know, especially with the visuals that we had, like the lower thirds.
I hope not a Channel 5 documentary, because they used to use Nazis and really right-wing people as talking heads, so let's not make it a Channel 5 documentary.
I didn't mean the people in it, I just meant the look of it. It just felt very...
Yeah, you're right. It has got that. It has got that. There is another
cheapness.
There is another George Michael documentary where you've got a bunch of talk, very Channel 5 vibe, where you've got Dan Wootton and some others talking about him, and that really is sour candy. Like, ooh, that feels like budget 25p, lob some bits of footage together. I didn't get that from this, but I do know what you're saying.
George Michael, Portrait of an Artist. We're going to go for the star rating.
I want you to go first.
You want me to go first? Yeah, I rarely go first, actually. Subject matter, brilliant, fascinating. Perhaps not a great deal of stuff that I didn't already. For me, it just felt, the second half especially, I take your comments on board about obviously it doesn't have a happy ending because we haven't got George around now. It felt quite depressing, but I don't think that was just because he's passed. I just think some of the commentary that was in this towards the end just became a bit questionable. I don't know if there's some bitterness there from some of the people involved. I was just getting that vibe. I was getting that vibe of, I don't know. I think we should be, I don't know, more celebratory. I'm going to go for 3. But I kind of enjoyed it to a certain extent, although it left me feeling quite maudlin and questioning things.
I've seen this a couple of times, this documentary. I'm probably with you, Phil, to be honest. George, for me, will always be 5. Right, George as an
absolutely
individual.
The same with me.
So this is not a criticism of George, because George is an iconic hero to many of us, including myself. I'm with you. He's probably a solid 3 as a film documentary, but I think, I'm not being unfair, I think it covers a portion of time, and some of it is a bit melancholy and it is about loss, and so. But I agree. I think it's in that kind of spectrum, especially compared to some of the documentaries we have seen, music documentaries we have seen in recent time.
Yeah, I just think, I don't know. I just think some of the interviews weren't painting him out to be. I mean, honesty is great policy. I get that, but I just think he could have been portrayed in a better way.
Tipsy's back, so she's got a view on this. So the second I gave my star rating, no, but George might be here. So I gave my star rating, and then Tipsy woke up and she's not happy. So I'm going to talk to Tipsy offline.
She's singing "Wake Me Up Before You Go."
Let Her Down Easy, which I think is appropriate. And we'll find out what Tipsy has to say about it, because she's clearly not happy.
Okay, so over to Tipsy.
She's just muted the microphone.
She's clever. She's sassy.
She's a clever girl.
So your star rating, is it the same as me? 3?
I'm going to give you a 3. Tipsy disagrees with me.
You're going to give me a 3?
I'm going to give you a 3 for this performance. I'm giving it's a 3. It's definitely a 3. Tipsy will disagree with me. She'll bite me later, but you know, we are where we are.
Scratch our eyes out, Tipsy.
Well done, Tipsy. Well done. I actually agree with you offline.
Thank you, Sean, as ever. Hopefully we'll be getting some more theatre reviews from you soon, because you're out roving reporter now as well.
I know, Tipsy. Yes, I will be out and about. I've already got my next one lined up, but it's a secret.